Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Liverpool Transfer Show on Football Talk Podcast. My name is Ozzy, and I'm your host for this evening. I've titled the show Endgame, not because it's no reference to Marvel or anything like that. It's because I feel like we are getting closer to completing a couple of deals with both players on the screen in Isak and Guehi. So we'll speak about both players, plus there's other rumors circulating today that we can discuss during the show. So let's begin with Isak. So no sort of huge developments in terms of a transfer offer being placed by Liverpool, but Eddie Howe has been quite vocal today and almost sounds like he's defeated in keeping Isak at Newcastle. So this is one of his quotes from earlier on today. So quote unquote, he won't be part of the squad this weekend. The club has to act in the best interest of Newcastle United. It will do that in every situation. It looks like it is coming to an end, or it will come to an end pretty quickly. Now, in regards to the Alexander, why am I saying that? Alexander Isak's social media statement that he posted a few days ago. Eddie Howe said that it was a sad moment. My preference is these things do not happen publicly. They are better dealt with behind closed doors, but needs must. The club has spoken and justifiable. So, in that moment, he's contacted to us. He's our player. My wish is that he would be playing on Monday. He won't be, and that's regrettable. But 100%, I want him back in a Newcastle shirt. Now, of course, he started off being very honest, but then I feel like he realized, oh, I can't be too honest there, so I've got to play the PR move and say, we want him to stay at Newcastle. He also mentioned in another interview that he did have discussions with Isak towards the end of the last season. So there was definitely discussions in regards to a possible transfer, possible move away from the club. So it's quite ironic because you've got Newcastle, responding to Isak's statement the other day and pretty much called him a liar, saying, what he's saying is not true. Yes, he may have had discussions with other senior figures who are no longer at the club, because of course you've got Amanda Shelby that's left. You've got Paul Mitchell, who was the sport director. He's left the club as well. So maybe there was promises made between those senior figures at the club, but they're no longer there. So when those things are discussed on a personal level and not written down on paper, unfortunately, it's not something that you can use in order to get your wish, which is a move away from the club. But I think the stance has been quite clear from Isak. He's had probably continuous discussions with the club, and they know his vision in terms of wanting to move away, go for a fresh challenge, and try and compete at the highest level, and that's why he's earmarked Liverpool as his next destination. So for me, I feel like we're going to get a conclusion sooner rather than later. I don't expect us to place a bid before the Monday fixture. Of course, we're facing Newcastle on Monday. I think we'll get further developments after the game. So potentially Tuesday, Wednesday would be the day where I feel like we'll get a bit more clarity in terms of what the situation is. From Eddie Howe's point of view, it sounds like he's defeated and he expects the player to leave at some point. I think the Newcastle fan base they are reluctantly um, accepted that he will be leaving as well. Some, of course, very angry still. Some are like, do you know what? Let him just go. It doesn't bode well for the club to keep a player when they're unhappy and not willing to fight for the badge. So when you've got a player like that, the best thing to do is move that player on. And from a Liverpool point of view, I feel like a bid has to come sooner rather than later. And the rumor is that Liverpool are preparing a new bid in the region of 120 to 130 million pounds for Isak. Of course, we made an initial inquiry a few weeks ago of 110 million. That was not accepted. I don't think it was, serious talks. It was just probably early discussions between the two clubs. But now Liverpool need to be ruthless. They need to be aggressive. Place that offer. That will be groundbreaking to the Premier League, but also Europe because it will be a huge amount of money. It will definitely break the British transfer record. So for me, I expect Isak to join Liverpool. I've said this numerous times during the off season. and I still stand by my stance. I believe Alexander Isak will be a Liverpool player by the end of this window. So let me know in the chat how you're feeling about Isak. Do you think he'll join, or do you think he'll end up staying at Newcastle? Feel free to let me know. Now, moving on, we'll speak about Newcastle a little bit actually, because I think with the current situation about Newcastle trying to sign new strikers, they found it difficult. Let's not beat around the bush. And a lot of Newcastle fans have said that because we signed Isak, it pretty much delayed the process, because that was supposed to be their replacement for Isak in the long term. But the thing is, we were interested in both Isak and Ekitike. Ekitike, we've been in talks with since January, apparently. And I think with the Isak situation, that's probably been, discussions with his agent, for a number of months as well. So I think it was always on the cards to try and get both players through the door. So with Newcastle, they found it very tricky to find an adequate replacement. Not only that, they've actually in the quest of signing two strikers, because they also let go of Callum Wilson on a free transfer. So right now, there's a few names, roaming around in terms of the online space. Some were getting some sort of news. So let's see, where Newcastle stands. So one of the rumors is Nicholas Jackson. Now, he's a player that apparently Newcastle have been in contact with in the last 24 hours. The interest is concrete for the Chelsea striker, but Aston Villa are also in the mix now. They're pushing for a move for Nicholas Jackson, as he's regarded as the top target for Unai Emery. And if you're not aware, Unai Emery actually managed Nicholas Jackson at Villarreal, and they have a great relationship. So that could be a deciding factor for Jackson to join Aston Villa. And apparently, there are talks ongoing over a structure of the deal. So, unfortunately, Newcastle fans, this is another name off the shortlist, because I don't think that will happen if Aston Villa are on the pursuit to sign a striker. Another one we've heard for a number of weeks now, and that is Johan Wissa, still linked to a move to Newcastle. The only difference between Wissa and Isak, of course, both players have been on strike, but recently Wissa has actually returned to training, and I've even heard that he could even be selected for Brentford's game against Aston Villa. So let's see what happens with this one. The player has made it very clear that he wants to move to Newcastle. Newcastle did place a bid of around £40 million, not good enough for Brentford. They want 60. So if Newcastle want this striker, they will have to pay the the demands, which is £60 million for Wissa. Another player that came out of the blue today was Alexander Solev. So he's currently unsettled at his club in Atletico Madrid. He's had some sort of dispute with the coach, not pleased with his role. So there's been some sort of, you know, a situation where they're not on good terms right now. So he's unsettled and he wants to move away. So apparently, Newcastle are exploring a deal to sign the Norwegian striker. So that could be a possibility. Whether it happens or not, I'm not too sure. I'm not sure if anyone remembers. He actually had a brief spell in the Premier League for Crystal Palace. Didn't really set the world alight. Didn't get that many games either, to be fair. But since then, he has gone on to be a prolific striker in Italy and Spain. So maybe someone that could, come in and do a job on the short term. And the one that they're after in the last 48 hours is Jorgen Strand Larsen. Um, Before, Wolves were very reluctant to talk business with Newcastle, but there have been some discussions, and apparently they're only £5 million apart in terms of the valuation of Jorgen Strand Larsen. The Magpies are trying to push the sign for the 25-year-old in a deal worth £60 million. So Wolves face a real fight to keep him. It looks like the player, his head has been turned. He wants to move away from Wolves. So Wolves are going to find it very, very difficult to try and keep him on board. So I've named a few targets there. Now, I do feel like if none of these targets are attainable, it could impact our deal to sign Isak. But what's my verdict? What do I see happening um, by the end of this window? I think Newcastle will sign two strikers in the end. I think they'll end up getting Larson and I think they'll also get Wissa. So combine the two fees, like if they did match the valuation of Wissa at 60 plus another 60 for Larson, that's 120 million pounds worth of talent there. And of course, that move can only be facilitated if they were to sell an Alexander Isak. So, in my opinion, they get two strikers here, and we get our man Isak, and I think he'll be wearing the number 9 shirt. So that is my verdict. That's my prediction. So let's see how it ends in just under 10 days. We're almost, almost towards the closing line of the window. So yeah, not long to go. So hopefully we'll get some more clarification next week. Now, moving on to another Liverpool target is Marc Guehi. Now, the current rumor for the past week is that Liverpool and Crystal Palace have been in talks in regards to finalizing a deal for Marc Guehi, and the 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 sort of perception is that a deal is definitely on the cards for this summer rather than waiting for Gay to be available on a free transfer. Uh, and now Crystal Palace are actively trying to sell Mark Guehi to Liverpool before the window closes, with Chairman Steve Parish unwilling to lose the defender on a free transfer, which is understandable to be fair. However, Liverpool still do not want to meet Palace's £40 million asking price. Um, Oliver Glasner had a very interesting comment today when he was interviewed. Uh, and quote unquote, he said, "We are very, very late to find replacements. I think we could have behaved much better than we did. It's not the best way to start the season. I think we are below the edge. If Mark Gay leaves, maybe I will try my boots because I was a centre back. We have to act. It's Crystal Palace's future, and we need to add numbers." And that's a very, very interesting point there, because with regards to Mark Gay, with him possibly leaving the club, they haven't found a natural replacement for him. They were heavily linked with Sporting's Ousmane Diomande, sorry, but that sort of fizzled out a little bit. I'm not sure why. At one point, it was like they were very close to finalizing a deal of around 40 million pounds. Maybe they're waiting for Gay to leave, and that ends up being the direct replacement rather than Diomande becoming a player in addition to having Gay at the club. So it remains to be seen. I believe we will get the player in the end. I think it's only a matter of time. But I have heard some whispers online that uh, Oliver Glasner wants Gay to play in uh, the Conference League fixture next Thursday, and after that, he's able to move on. I guess so. For me, that's way too close to the deadline day. But if a move can be done for Liverpool to get Gay through to Anfield, then for me, however it happens, I don't really care. As long as we get Mark Gay through the door, I think that's the most important thing. We are lacking numbers in terms of our defensive department, and I do believe that his addition to our squad will present a lot of stability in that defensive line, but gives us the options to play different combinations throughout the season. So I really hope we do sign Mark Guehi, and I believe we will get Isak and Guehi at the end. So only time will tell if that comes to fruition. But that's just the sort of the vibe that I'm getting. That's the kind of feelings that I have. So let's see what happens. Before we move on, I'm just going to go through some of the comments. LFC20 says, "Hi Ozzy, do you think Isak will activate Article 17 in his contract to get his move?" I'm not even sure what Article 17 is reference to. Um, is that to completely force the move and pretty much cancel out the contract? I did read something. I saw a tweet about it yesterday. I didn't know if that was a reality, something that could be a possibility. I don't know. If I'm being honest, I doubt it. But if he has a case, then that would be absolutely mental if that was to occur. So I don't think there is anything along those lines that will happen. But you never know. But my inkling would say no. I don't think that's something that he will do to get the move. Aaron, then big up Aaron. He says we will not sell Isak. If we sell him, we look weak, and our players will do the same. Newcastle will not sell this window. Up the mags. Appreciate you sending your comments there. But would you like to keep a player that's completely annoyed and frustrated with the whole situation because that's not the right player you need to have in your squad who will have that sort of deflated attitude. The morale will be low, and he probably wouldn't play to the level that we've seen him play for the last 2 3 years. So it's an interesting one. I know there are certain sections of the fan base that want Isak to stay, but then there's other Newcastle fans that are fed up and have called him all sorts, under the sun in terms of names. So it's going to be interesting. But you seem to want him to stay, which is fair enough. It's going to be interesting. My feeling is that Liverpool will sign him. I think we'll get him in the end. Um, I did read something earlier on today where the Saudi owners have pretty much heavily got involved now, and they've suggested that if it's not 150, they're not willing to talk. So 150 could be the stumbling block there. Um, Even though personally, if it's 150 that gets Isak out the door, then I'm all for it. It's not my money. So for me, as long as we get the player, that's the most important thing. But let me know what you think in terms of the players that you've been linked to. So I mentioned a few names. If there's any names missing, feel free to let me know in the chat because it's been very difficult to try and attract a top quality striker. And Newcastle aren't just the only team. There's a lot of teams that have struggled this summer just because the market's been a bit weird. The striker market isn't as great as it used to be. So clubs are pretty much all targeting the same profile, the same player. So it's not been easy to get done, unfortunately. But yeah, let's see what happens. JL says not happening. Mr. X says you haven't got a clue. I'm from L4. Elias is from. I'm from London. Um, LFC 20 says Aaron. Don't you already look weak for the way you handled this ESAT thing and you can't get players you want in? That's the thing, in terms of attracting the players, it's been a very difficult task for Newcastle. Um, they've tried to, target Ekatike, but of course, we were in pursuit of the striker for quite some time now. It's not just something where we all of a sudden thought, oh, let's sign Ekatike, and we just went for him. We've been, you know, in pursuit for a number of months to try and sign the French striker. And of course, Sesko, I thought Sesko would have been the deal that would have appealed to the player because I feel like in terms of the project that Newcastle would have presented, everything was, placed for him where he comes into a club where he would have on paper replaced Isak and he would have been the main man. He gets to play in the Champions League. He plays for a very passionate fan base. You know, I feel like Newcastle are one of those teams where they've got a very solid foundation, and with a few additions, they can be a real force in the Premier League. But in the end, he went for United, and yeah, of course, heritage will play a part in terms of their history, but obviously, money talks as well in this day and age. So, because of that, he ended up choosing United. I don't think that's the best decision for the player. I think he should have gone to Newcastle, if I'm being honest with you. But only time will tell. If that was the right move for him. But after Sesko, there weren't many targets available. That would have helped elevate Newcastle's game forward, if that makes sense. So right now you've got Larson from Wolves. I actually think he's a very talented player. Very impressed with some of his goals that he scored for the club last season. I think he was probably one of the players alongside Cunha that really helped Wolves solidify their Premier League status. So he is a good signing. I don't think Wolves will want to try and sell him so late in the window, but looks like the player's head has been turned and he wants to leave. So Wolves will need to get onto Jorge Mendes, the super agent, try and get a young and or a top quality striker from Portugal because something has to be done to try and you know fill in the gap and try and of course you know sign someone that will score the goals but also help them stay in the league because that could definitely um, derail their whole season in my opinion. So let's see what happens there. Mr. X says, Aaron Dent, we, what you mean, what we do, you own percentage of Newcastle. Yeah, okay, fine. Aaron Dent said, let's see how weak we look when Isak pulls the Newcastle shirt on after transfer window closed and we smash Liverpool Monday night. the Monday night fixture, it's gonna be a crazy affair. I'm looking forward to it, but at the same time, I'm thinking it could go left. It's one of those fixtures, but yeah, we'll see. I'm not saying it with chest that we're going to get Isak, but I'm very confident that we will. I've said it throughout the whole summer, regardless of the way the scenario has panned out. My stance has always been the same. I believe Isak will be a Liverpool player at the end of the season. But if not, it's all good. These things happen, but we'll have a chat after the window if you'd be welcome to do so. Jill says Article 70 doesn't allow him to get a move this summer. That's for sure. It's irrelevant. Yeah, I'm not too sure if that sort of thing is applicable to this current window. Of course, if the window closes and he definitely just wants to leave Newcastle, then I guess he could do that. And then yeah, then I'm assuming he's up for as a free agent, which yeah, it just sounds a bit crazy to even say out loud, but who knows? Let's see what happens. Antonio, big up Antonio says greetings from Croatia. Big up yourself, Antonio. Thank you for your comment. Thank you for tuning in. Aaron says stump up 150 million. Then we might do. Who knows? We've got the money, so it's not like we're short of money right now. So we've definitely got the funds. And the only reason why Liverpool haven't placed an offer is because we're trying to be respectable in the situation. Liverpool have had early discussions with the hierarchy at Newcastle. They seem to have a bit of a off stance that they didn't want to sell. But with the player doing all of this motion right now, where he's gone AWOL at one point, refused to train, he's refused to go for preseason preparation over in Asia. He's gone over to his former club and trained there instead. He's come back to Newcastle and he's been told to train alone. Apparently, he's been fined 2 weeks' salary as well, which I just found out yesterday. So, you know, it's not a good light into what's been happening between the club and the player. Fans are blaming Liverpool for it. Like, I don't think Liverpool have done anything wrong here. We've tried to place a bid and we tried to offer a big bid that will probably break the British transfer record. And that's it. We've just left it at that. But because the player has shown such frustration because promises have been broken, according to him, that's why he's pretty much gone AWOL. He just doesn't care. He needs to leave. He's frustrated with the club. The trust has been broken. Relationships have been broken. So he wants out. And that's what it is right now. So I still believe Liverpool, are in the mix. They're just waiting to knock on that door and place that bid. That's what I think Liverpool are doing right now. And I think it will happen next week. It won't happen before the fixture because I think that would be mental if it does. I think it will happen next Tuesday, Wednesday, if I was to make a prediction. So yeah, let's see what happens. Essex Reds, big up yourself. He says Liverpool need to hurry this Isak deal up. Newcastle starting to believe Isak will play for them again. It's crazy that they feel like that because we had D-Man on the channel yesterday, big up to D-Man, and he pretty much said that there's some fans that feel like he will stay, and some fans are just had enough of the situation. So it's very split right now. But I've seen shirts being burnt. I've seen him being called a rat, and it's been graffitied everywhere as well. So it's just depending who you speak to, right? But I don't know. I think even speaking from a neutral point of view, you can't expect Isak to play for Newcastle. The way things have gone on, even the statement that was released the other day, that was premeditated. Let's be honest. Everyone was in attendance in that award show. So whilst everyone's there, everyone's probably on their phone getting alerts that this is Isak's social media post. So yeah, I don't know. If they're feeling confident about it, then that's on their side. I don't know where the confidence is coming from because maybe I'm too oblivious to it. But from what I'm seeing it from a neutral point of view, it's a lot of rival fans expect Isak to join Liverpool. Obviously, Liverpool, as a Liverpool fan, I'm going to say, yeah, he's coming because I've had the same feeling. I've had this stance for quite a while, and it's not going to change. So for me, I'm very confident that we'll sign him. Whether he stays or not remains to be seen, but only time will tell. AR, big up AR. He says, would you rather get Isak for 150 million or three players to fuel the squad depth? Great question. I feel with this question is funny because if it was in a different scenario where we didn't have this transfer saga, I would have maybe had a bit more of a measured response to that. But for me, we have to get Isak. We've done so much to get him. We've been on pursuit. We've been waiting to just place that bid so we can get him through the line. Uh, I feel like we've done so much. I think we just need to get him to Anfield now. So for me, I would take Isak. I know 150 million sounds crazy, but it's the market. You got to pay the market rate for one of the best strikers in the world, in my opinion. So if that is the rate, it is what it is. So for me, I would take, you know, Isak for 150 million pounds. Had you asked me this question before the window had opened, I may have said the three players to provide squad depth more than anything else. But I'm gonna go with the Isak one because for me, that's the striker I've been wanting for quite some time, and I'm not gonna need to change my stance. I want Isak at Anfield. So yeah, that's my opinion there. Yeah, so which area defensively we need to strengthen? I think defensively we need a centre back. 100% we need a centre back. We've got Virgil, we've got Canate, we've got Leone, and we've got Joe Gomez. Now, on paper, Joe Gomez is a good defender, but has struggled with injuries over the years. So availability is a key issue there. Leone, he's just started, training with the club after signing last week. So for me, he's definitely one for the future. Will play games here and there, but not, utilized very heavily from the start, in my opinion. And then you've got Virgil Canate forming a formidable partnership. I'm hoping we get Marc Guehi to add to that mix. So that ends up being five centre back options, which I would definitely be confident about because you've got five defenders that can play together, in different combinations. And I feel like it gives you that stability. It gives me confidence that, we can go on and rotate the defenders if needed and play to the highest level in different competitions. So for me, if Mike Gay comes through, he ticks a lot of boxes. Experienced player, two-footed, can play in a back three and a back four, can play as a DM if we really, really need to. So he gives us versatility. Uh, but of course, he's a leader as well. So he gives us a different dynamic in the back line. So for me, Mark Gay has to be signed in this window. And if we're only haggling for about 5-10 million, like let's just get over the line. Let's not haggle too much and let's just get the player that we need. So I'm hoping we do strengthen in our centre back position. AR says we need a centre back, central defensive midfielder, striker, and a winger that can play left wing, right wing. 100% agree. I feel like with the centre back, it should be Mark Gay. So that's one ticked off your list there. Defensive midfielder, I think we should do, but I don't think it will be an area we look to strengthen in this window. It will be something where maybe we've got some targets in mind and we see how they develop in the course of this season, and then we target them next summer. So I think that's a next summer um, prospect, in my opinion. And then a striker should be Isak on paper. In terms of the winger, we'll speak about someone very shortly, but that could be a possibility as well. I feel like it's a bit of a pipeline dream to add another winger. And when I say another winger, I'm expecting someone of high quality, not just any random winger. So ideally, it would make sense to have another one because we're hearing rumors that Harvey Elliott could be leaving. So that's another space that hasn't been filled in the squad. So I feel like that's the position we should try and strengthen. I think for Liverpool, it might just be a thing where if we can't get the right player, we'll wait until January. So maybe in January is where we revisit the market and try and find that attacking winger if we need to at the time. Which in my head, I think we do because Salah is expected to be at AFCON. So, that might be the perfect time to add to the squad. Um, so, yeah, in terms of the areas you mentioned, you're not wrong, but I don't think they'll be addressed in this window. AR says this Isak saga is just like a movie, and we played them on Monday 8 p.m. Yeah, we played them on Monday. I'm doing a live watch along as well, so if you'd like to tune in, feel free to join, and yeah, get involved in the live chat. Whether you're a Newcastle fan, Liverpool fan, it's going to be a fiery encounter for sure. But yeah, feel free to get involved in the chat, and we can have a discussion during the game. Build Bookie, Free Horse Racing Tips. Anyway, Selby says, "You're not from my city. You shouldn't be supporting my team. Why not?" If that's the case, then every city won't have fans from all over the world. It'll be a national. It will just be a local thing then. So if that's the case, then football wouldn't be as big as it is right now. So if that's your viewpoint, keep that to yourself. 'Cause I think that's irrelevant, to be honest with you. Yeah. So what about the Liverpool players on the field? Where are they from? Exactly. Not all the players are from Liverpool, are they? So yeah. Explain that. You're quick to say that you should only support the team that you're from, but that's not how football works. Everyone has the right to choose who they support, and I've supported Liverpool for over 30 years, so you can't really doubt my commitment to supporting one team there. But yeah, I know fans will always have these opinions that you should support your local team, but that's not how it always works. So, I've got an admiration for Liverpool from a younger age, so that's why I support them. Um, and why not? If we just base on real from demographics, then how's how's football going to evolve? If that was the case, then no one should buy another player from another country if you're going to keep that energy. So, yeah, it's a funny statement there. Um, LFC 20 saying, why not? Yeah, it's not. Let's see if he's got a response to that. Ozan Kabak says, big up the man, Ozzy. Big up, Ozan Kabak. I hope you're well. Uh, eh, Ozan Kabak, it's time for another fade ahead of St. James Park. Ozzy, yeah, I might have to do it. Might have to look. I might have to go and purchase the home kit as well, just to show a bit more support for that game. But yeah, it's going to be a crazy affair. Looking forward to it. I know a lot of fans are not looking forward to it so much, thinking it's going to be more of a UFC battle than anything else. But I think it'll be fine. It should be. I think it's going to be a very hostile environment, which sometimes you get the best out of certain players as well. So for me, it should be a good game, nonetheless. I like was saying Liverpool without international play would be Tranmere Rovers, precisely. So yeah, I don't know why fans say things like that, but yeah, it is. That's your opinion, that is your opinion, but I, I strongly disagree with it. So yeah, if that is what it is. Okay, moving on. And this is one of the players I was referring to in terms of being that additional attacker, and that is Rodrigo. Now, a couple of days ago, I mentioned that uh, apparently his agent is in London and he's had discussions with the likes of Liverpool and Man City and Arsenal. I think we're involved in that as well, but you know, Arsenal not involved in signing another attacker because they've just hijacked the deal and they've signed Eze. I think it's official now, isn't it? So that's been done now. So it looks like maybe between Man City and Liverpool there is a potential move here. So the current rumor is that Liverpool are already engaging in negotiations with the entourage of Rodrigo. The rest see the Brazilian as a perfect replacement for Luis Diaz. Um, and they want to close operation as soon as possible. Um, so my thoughts on this, firstly, because I just mentioned Diaz, I don't know if anyone's seen his goal for Bayern Munich today. What a finish it was! I really hope we don't regret selling him because I've been a fan of Luis Diaz. I know he gets a sort of a split opinions amongst the Liverpool fan base, but I've always liked him. I think last season showed his sort of prime ability, and I feel like right now he's playing his prime. So maybe it was too soon to sell him, but only time will tell if we're going to regret that decision or not. But in terms of Rodrigo, I just don't know because I always had that feeling that he'll stay at Real Madrid, but he hasn't been selected in recent games. He's pretty much voiced his opinion that his position is only left wing, and that's something that he's communicated to the coach, and that he doesn't want to play right wing anymore. Whether that's gone well or not, remains to be seen. And I think there has been some sort of rumors that the club are, open to selling the player. So it's going to be interesting. If he is available, I do think Liverpool and Man City would be the front runners. Now, where would he go to? That's the big question. He could go to Man City because Man City have just loaned out Grealish to Everton. I don't expect them to, you know, I don't know if Everton can afford Grealish at the end, but it's clear that he's not part of their plans. So that's why they've loaned him out. So there's a vacant space there. And Savinho might be moving on to Tottenham. I don't know if there's been any developments with that rumor there. So a vacant left wing position is definitely there. For Liverpool, of course, we haven't replaced Luis Diaz. So because we haven't replaced Luis Diaz, we do need a left winger. But then some Liverpool fans will rebuttal and say, "What about Rio? Rio and Gamoa. Like, he's a special talent that is predominantly left winger. Why don't we give him a run? I don't think he's quite ready. I don't get me wrong. I rate the kid. He's a very talented player, but we can't just put him in the first team just like that. This is Liverpool Football Club. We're not just any team. We're competing for the highest honors right now, and that's a lot of pressure for a 16-year-old to be, thrown into the mix and expect to perform week in, week out. It's not possible. So for me, the best thing for Rio is to play with the under 23s, which is still a huge step for him because he's 16 years old. So he's playing at a level where people are 7 years older than, or maybe even more, because with under 23s, you are allowed to bring in, experienced players from the first team. So there is that kind of rule there. So he'll be playing pretty much equivalent to men's football, not quite at the highest level like a championship level, but still playing, with players of experience and more physicality, and he'll be playing at ferocious speed. So for me, it's good for his development to play full under 23s. And then in January, the way I'm envisioning is that in January we, add him to the mix and play him in the cup games. And then with Salah being out towards AFCON, that's when we can, utilize his skills and have him on the bench or have him as a viable option if we need any attackers in our team. So that's a slow transition to get him into the first team. And then next summer, from 2026 onwards, that's when, he can be part of the first team mix, in my opinion. That's how I'm mapping his future, I guess, in my mind. Because he's been on the bench a couple of times, he hasn't been involved. So clearly, it shows me that Arsenal rates the player, but just doesn't think he's quite ready yet, which is fair enough in my opinion. So yeah, let's see what happens. With the Rodrigo thing, it's going to be interesting. Um, can you imagine if we were to get Isak and Rodrigo? That sounds like such a silly thing to say out loud, but you can't rule it out because Liverpool are linked with both players. Like, there's some rumors suggesting that if the Isak deal doesn't happen, then we go for Rodrigo as the only alternative, which is not the worst case scenario because I do feel like Liverpool would try and go for Isak in January, and it's just a matter of time that we get our striker in the end. So in that way, let's paint that picture. I don't want to paint it, but let's just paint that picture. So let's say we don't get Isak, but we get Rodrigo. How does the team set up? So for me, Ekitike would be the main striker, and then you would have Chiesa as his backup. Then you have Rodrigo, Gakpo. Then you have Verts and Szoboszlai, and then you have Salah. But Salah wouldn't have a direct replacement. Below him, it would be Frimpong as a makeshift player. I would have said Rodrigo, but apparently he doesn't want to play right wing anymore. So maybe that's not no longer an option. Um, but yeah, it wouldn't be a bad sort of short term solution. Then we get Isak. Um, in January, and then with Isak in January, then you've got Chiesa becoming that backup, that direct backup, more or less for Mohamed Salah. So that would be a complete front line there if we were to get an attacker and a left winger, which should be on the cards. But whether we do it in this window remains to be seen. But yeah, I'm not sure about the Rodrigo one, just because I feel like it's too late in the window. But you never know. It's one of those situations where because Real Madrid don't fancy the player anymore, and it's been quite publicly known now, there is a slim chance. And with Arsenal not in the mix, City are in the mix. They're also in the mix to try and sign Donnarumma as well. Um, if they were to get Donnarumma and Rodrigo, yeah, it's going to be a very long season for everyone. But look, we'll wait until we hear any developments. But we can't rule out Rodrigo joining Liverpool. It's still a possibility. Whether it happens or not remains to be seen. Before we move on, let's read some of the comments. AR says that's way too much for Rodrigo if we end up paying 150 for Isak. Rodrigo would cost around 70 million, I believe. So, if Isak was 150, I don't think Isak will be sold for 150. I think the fee will be around 130. So you add 70, that's £200 on two players there. £200, 200 million pounds, sorry. Um, which isn't that crazy to be fair. So if you get Rodrigo and Isak and Marc Guehi, then I'll forgive the club for not spending money in the next 2, 3 windows, honestly, because then you've got the complete squad there. So yeah, it's let's see what happens. It feels like I'm being a bit too yeah too giddy about this because it feels like I'm playing career mode right now, where I'm just buying too many good players. I don't know if it's going to be realistic, but only time will tell. Let's see what happens because the Rodrigo one, he looks like he's on the move, but there aren't many suitors out there. The two suitors would be Man City and Liverpool. Arsenal wouldn't go for him because they've signed Eze. Chelsea, I don't know if Chelsea would go for him. They've got quite a few players to be fair, but you never can rule out Chelsea when it comes to a transfer because they love to wheel and deal in these kind of scenarios. Who else we got? Tottenham. Tottenham would be an option, but I don't see Rodrigo being attracted to a move to Tottenham, even though they are playing Champions League football this season. And if you look across Europe, Bayern Munich don't need one because they've got Diaz. Neither do Barca. Neither do, of course, from Real Madrid. PSG, no, they've got too many attackers. If Barcola was to be sold, then that's the person you would replace him with. But there's only Man City and Liverpool right now. So if he really wants that move, maybe it's something on the cards. I even heard someone saying a loan deal. I don't think they'll loan him, but hey, if they want to loan him with obligation, I'm all for that as well. But yeah, only time will tell. Honestly, I'm not too sure about the regime. I'm not really getting a positive feeling about that one. I'm a bit on the fence. So let's see what happens with Rodrigo. It asks for the price of Rodrigo, you can get two wingers or centre back winger or winger DM. You could, but we don't even know how much money we have. Apparently, Liverpool were in a position to actually spend 400 million and still not affect the PSR. Remember, guys, we've generated a lot of funds in terms of revenue. We've sold a lot of players as well. So our net spend isn't that high at all. It's in the positive more than anything else. So you never know. You know, with Elliott possibly leaving as well, he'll be gone for about 40, 50 million pounds. And then you've got Tsimikas also on the verge of leaving as well. He'll be gone for about 10 odd million. So that's about 50, 60 million altogether. And that could pretty much pay off the Rodrigo deal there. So can't rule it out. But let's see. Let's see what happens. AR said West Ham won, Chelsea 5. Graham Potter will be the first head coach to be sacked this season. Premier League, he isn't good enough. I haven't seen the match, so I'm gonna have to check the highlights after again. But of course, I know the scoreline from before. Yeah, it's not looking good for him. And unfortunately, you know, if he stays at the job any longer, West Ham are in serious trouble. So it's going to be interesting. I know at Forest there seems to be an issue with Nuno and the owner, where he's pretty much said that the relationship's broken down. Maybe that's the time for West Ham to pounce and get Nuno through the door and sack Graham Potter. Of course, I don't want anyone sacked, but I'm just saying, you know, in football terms, you know, if they wanted to get an adequate coach, then that could be the guy that comes in to replace him. So who knows? Who knows? But yeah, if I was to suggest the most likely candidate to be dismissed, unfortunately, it would be Graham Potter based on you know how poor West Ham have started this season. Uh, Ozan asks, Ozzy, would you take Manu Kanji from City if the gay transfer falls apart? I do like Kanji, you know. The thing I actually do rate him as a player. Um, I wanted him years ago. Just a fun fact that I wanted him. Um, when he was still at Dortmund, because I feel like he would have been a good player to replace Matip or come in to be his replacement in the long term. So I rate him. I think he's a very talented player, but I don't think they'd want to do business with us. So in the real world, it wouldn't happen. On paper, I wouldn't mind Akanji. Of course, he's not homegrown, so he doesn't tick those boxes, but um, could be a decent option, I guess, in terms of not being first choice, but being adequate cover for the likes of Van Dijk and Kanate. But for me, Marc Guehi is the deal to get done. You know, it ticks too many boxes that it's like it's too good to be true. So we need to try and sign him. That's my stance there. Man is 30. Is he 30 years old? Bloody hell. I thought he was a lot younger than that. Oh, you're right. He's 30. Well, he just turned 30, but in defender's age, he's still about to hit his prime. So yeah, it's not too bad. But yeah, I'm not sure what's happening with his future. He was linked to a move to Galatasaray, but he seems to have dismissed that on Twitter. I think Fabrizio Romano tweeted, he's like, I don't know what you're on about. So yeah, that kept him shut for the evening, I guess. LFC 20 said Van Dijk is 33. Yeah, with defenders, 30 plus is not a bad age. I think for us, it's just that we're programmed to think when once you hit 30, you're old. That's because of FSG. That's what Arsenal used to have that model as well through Arsene Wenger. Um, but for a defender's age, 30 is not a bad age because you're still experienced enough to lead the defensive line and be an experienced head in that defense. So for me, it's not a bad age, but no, it wouldn't happen just because of Man City and Liverpool's rivalry. Uh, on to the next one, and that is Harvey Elliott. Now, the current rumor is that negotiations between Red Bull Leipzig and Liverpool are almost complete, with a full agreement now very, very close. Sources indicate that finalizing the last details and paperwork will see the transfer concluded in the coming days. It's moving fast. We've heard that Harvey Elliott has agreed personal terms with the club, and he's desperate for that deal to get done. But at the same time, I also saw something that he's desperate to play against Newcastle. He's never been so fired up before a game. I think he wants to get revenge on Joe Linton for that shove that he did last season. I think that's why he's all fired up and wanting a bit of bit of action in the game. But no, I expect Harvey Elliott to leave. I did read somewhere that suggested that Liverpool might want to keep him this season because they didn't really state the reason, but maybe because we don't have enough attackers in our squad, and maybe they thought, keep him for one more year. But I feel like with Harvey, like he's smart enough to understand his situation where game time is not guaranteed. So because of that, he needs to look out for number one, and that's himself, and find a club that will grant him first team football, that will give him a pathway to have an impact in the team. And I think that's why he's looked at his different options. He's had links in the Premier League. He had the likes of Wolves. He had Tottenham recently as well. Apparently, Fulham tried to inquire about him very late on in terms of recent days. But Red Bull Leipzig, they've been very consistent in terms of their interest, and they've earmarked him as a replacement for Xavi Simons, who's set to be joining Chelsea in the coming days. So for me, it's a good move for him. I feel like the Bundesliga would suit his skill set where it's played at a slower pace. So he's able to use his technical ability to his advantage. And I feel like he could have a real impact in that team. So for me, it's a good move for him. Um, I would have liked him to have stayed because I do feel like he gives us good cover for that right wing, can also play that number 10 role if required. But I feel like with Arne Slot, he didn't favour the player that much last season, especially towards the second half. So for me, the writing was on the wall that he's not Arne Slot type of player, and it's unfortunate because he's a boyhood red, he's living the dream. So it's not nice, that he's having to come to an end right now. But I think he's come to terms with it, and he knows that it's best for his career to move on and pursue elsewhere. So hopefully, he gets his move, and I do wish him the best because he seems like a good guy as well. LSC 20 says, I feel sorry for Elliot. He's one of us, a fan of the club, but he gets to play for them and they want to sell him. Yeah, that's exactly what I just said right now. Yeah, it's a shame. He's living our dream right now, isn't he? Playing for, the team that you supported since you were young. So, yeah, it is a shame. But, once you're in the game, it is about your career. You have to do what's best for you and what's best for your family. And I feel like, it's probably the right time, the right age as well. He's very young. He's still able to go over to a team and really make a name for himself. So for me, this might be the right time to do that. If he stays for another season, I would not be against it. I would be quite pleased, to be honest with you, because I know what Harvey Elliott can bring to the table, but I just don't know if that's going to be on the cards. If Liverpool aren't able to get another attacker, I wouldn't be surprised if they try to hold him on for another year. But I think he's quite adamant that he wants to leave now. So that's been his sort of stance within the camp. So I think Harvey Elliott will get his move in the end. So yeah, let's see what happens in terms of his future. And the final rumor is Kostas Tsimikas. Now he is gathering a lot of interest. There was a lot of interest in the Premier League with Nottingham Forest being one of the clubs, but now Marseille are very much interested in signing Tsimikas, who is expected to leave this summer. Whether it's on a loan or on a permanent basis, I'm not entirely sure because I've been hearing sort of mixed news. Some of outlets have said it's a permanent deal, some have said it's on a loan basis, so I'm not sure what to believe. And Olympiakos, one of his former clubs, is also linked with a move for the Greek defender. So my thoughts in terms of him potentially leaving, I think it was always on the cards because we've got so many left backs at the club, but the destination doesn't seem to be clear. Early on in the window, it was Leeds United that really wanted to sign him, but that rumor seems to have fizzled out a little bit. Now you've got Nottingham Forest, so I'm not sure, you know, how strong that is. Because looking at the squad, they've got quite a few numbers there as well. So it'll be interesting to see. And in regards to Marseille, I've already seen that they've looked at another target because they thought Tsimikas would have been on the radar, but they're actually looking at Emerson from West Ham as an alternative if they can't get Tsimikas. So it'll be very interesting to see where he goes. It will be a shame to see him leave as well because I think he's been a reliable option for us over the years. Whenever he's come on, he's produced the goods for us. Whether it's little cameos here or helping us win the FA Cup all those years ago, he's definitely played his part. So for me, very talented player, great crossing ability. I think that goes under the radar and seems like a great character, in and around the players as well. So he'll definitely be missed due to his personality and his presence. But I think he knows, his numbers will be minimized in terms of appearances this season. So best thing to do is probably move on, play some first team football. He's 30 years old now, so that's the right time for him to go on and do that. But not clear in terms of where he'll go. I thought a move in the Premier League was on the cards, but it looks like he could go to or might even return back home and go over to Greece. So yeah, let's see what happens for the Greek Scouser, as he likes to call himself. Ozan Kabak says, crazy how if you're a great player, clubs will do whatever it takes to hold you hostage, Isak, in brackets there. But if you're a fringe player, clubs don't care if you leave Morton, Doak, Nat Phillips, etc. Yeah, unfortunately, that's just part of the game. And even just to add a bit more of a layer to your comment, with certain players, when they show that kind of attitude that they're uncertain, they don't want to play for the club, fans go all ham on top of that player. Whereas when it's the club, like you mentioned, with these fringe players there, everyone just feels like, oh, the club's doing the right thing. So the club never really gets that abuse. It's always the player, unfortunately. And it's just the way it's PR'd, unfortunately, where they make it seem like that the player is the problem rather than the club. Because the club, like with the Isak situation, they probably promised him and they said that, if someone places an offer for you, we will allow you to move on. But then all of a sudden it's like, no, no, we're not going to let you go. And then to put a 150 price tag as well, which is, very far fetched to anyone in terms of like placing that kind of offer. They've tried to derail the whole situation there. So for me, it's just how it works. It's not fair, especially with the likes of Morton, Doe, the players that you've mentioned there. And then in terms of Isak, because Isak, he's been quite quiet, and of course, expressed himself the other day on social media, and even that, Newcastle responded and said, "Oh, he's lying," pretty much. So, um, it is what it is, and some fans will be like, "Oh, because you're a Liverpool fan, you just want Isak to come through." Liverpool fans have gone through this. We've gone through this with the likes of Coutinho, who faked a back injury to get a move. We've had Suarez, who had to bite another person to force his move as well. We've had our fair share. We've had Torres as well, who we thought, you know, was going to stay with us because we had a very awful season. I'm not going to try and remind him, but under Roy Hodgson. And he was pretty much, vocal saying, I'm going to stay, I'm going to fight for this club and try and help the team going forward. And then the following week, he left for Chelsea. So it's just how it goes. So it's football, unfortunately. life goes on, and I feel like the club, should be able to move on without these players. But let's see what happens in the end. We've got Gerard number 89 who said can't see Isak happening until January or next summer. I can see why you're saying that just because of the timing of this deal and or should I say lack of time. We've got 8 days now. It's the 23rd. We've just touched midnight in the UK. So yeah, it's going to be crazy. But the thing is, if it's in January, it doesn't favor Newcastle because we could, of course, place a lower fee where it doesn't beat the British transfer record. It could be maybe 100 million, but it won't be 120, it won't be 130, because I would just expect the player to go complete AWOL and say, I'm not playing for you guys. No, don't care what you got to say. I will happily train with the youth team, but I'm not playing for you because you've pretty much broken all the faith that I have with you. The ties have been done, but the bridges have been burnt. So there's no need for me to be here. So that could happen. It sounds crazy to say out loud, but players just can be, very stubborn and say, look, I'm not playing for you. So if you want me to rot in the reserves, that's your problem as well, because now you're not getting any money to reinvest into the squad. You've got an unhappy player in the squad, and you're not making anything off the player. He's not playing, so he's not participating in terms of on the pitch. Off the pitch, you're not making any money from him in terms of shirt sales, because shirts are getting burnt right now with Isak's name on the back. So it's not helping anyone in this situation. So the scenario, and I'm not saying because I'm a Liverpool fan, the best scenario is for Isak to leave now and let that sort of money that comes through be invested into the squad. I know we're very late in the window right now, but deals can be done. And if not, wait until January to address those positions that you feel like, there's gaps in the squad. So for me, Newcastle should accept an offer from Liverpool, and the offer will be big. It'll be 120, 130, because we're not here to mess around. We're going to place one offer, and that's going to be the offer that should be accepted, in my opinion. So let's see. I know a lot of the fan base are not feeling quite confident with it. I'm gonna, continue with my stance. I believe Isak will be a Liverpool player at the end of the window. And that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you to let's go from the top. LFC 20. Thank you to Aaron. Thank you to JL. Thank you to Mr. X. Thank you to LFC 20. Thank you to Antonio. Thank you to Essex Red. Thank you to AR. Thank you to Build Bookie Horse Race racing tips. Uh, thank you to Oz and Kabak as always. And thank you to Gerard Num 89 as well. Appreciate your engagement as always, guys. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Just got a few comments here before we close the show, so let me read it out. Um, Gerard Num 89 says, I do, however, feel we'll go for him one more time before the window shuts. I agree. I think the bid that we place next week will be the one that gets accepted, because it won't be a lowball offer. We did, I don't think it was official, but the word is that we placed a 110 million offer a few weeks ago. So for me, it's going to be a situation where we have to increase. So it has to be a minimum 120 plus add-ons. That would equal to 130, maybe 140. Who knows? But I think the bid that we give, you know, if Newcastle turn it down, honestly, not to sound like I'm being petty here, I don't think they'll get that offer ever again from anyone else. So let's see what happens. I feel like the best case scenario would be for Isak to leave Newcastle, only because it's disrupting the harmony within their squad as well. Eddie Howe, for me, sounds like he just wants to get rid of the player now because it's just done too much, in this kind of short space, and it's going to have an effect in the squad as well. So let's see what happens. But in terms of one more bid, I think we will place one more bid, and I think it will be the final bid that gets the deal done. That's just my thoughts there. LSC 20 says Isak. If Isak stays, do Newcastle fans really think he will give 100%? If that is the situation, he's going to have to, because technically he's contracted. He has to remain a professional and he has to play to his capability. But, having said that, when a player has that sort of mind frame where they're not happy, they're peed off, and they just don't want to be there, then that's what happens. You're going to get a person that's going to be stroppy, just not going to be, you know, sociable. He won't speak to his teammate. He'll just be in a bad mood all the time. So what's the point of keeping that kind of figure in your squad? And that's why I said it will ruin the harmony of the squad, in my opinion. So let's see what happens. But some Newcastle fans seem to be sort of satisfied with that scenario where he stays for another season. If you're a Newcastle fan, you're watching, feel free to let me in the chat. Would you be pleased to have him for the remainder of this kind of next stage, where I guess up to January at least, or for the remainder of the season? Would you be happy to welcome him with open arms? Let me know in the chat, because I don't think that would be the right case, but that's just my opinion on the Isak situation. Gaz, Newcastle FCB, Gaz, he says, since the Isak saga, I'm shocked to see how plastic Liverpool fan base is. Everton is the real Scouse club. Appreciate your comment. That's your opinion. That is yours, I guess. LSC 20 says big up LSC 20. Hope you're well. LSC 20 says we bid next Tuesday. That'd be crazy. Imagine if we beat Newcastle and we bid the next day. That would definitely rub the salt on the wounds there, isn't it? So I think it'll be Tuesday, Wednesday. I think it'll be Wednesday where we get that official bid. We'll let the results settle for 24 hours, and then we'll go bang 130 million, and that should be enough to get that deal accepted. That's what I'm envisioning. So let's see what happens there. Other comment, I think, is laughing to Gaz's comment there. Gaz says, can't wait to see the second bid get rejected. Only time will tell, guys. Let's see what happens. We've got 8 days of the windows left, so yeah, only time will tell. We'll see what happens. But yeah, let's see uh, what happens in the end. But yeah, that is it for today, guys. Thank you to Gaz, who's just contributed with some comments there. Appreciate you guys as always. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Now, in terms of upcoming content, nothing scheduled for the weekend. However, if Liverpool do a bit of a madness and place a bid before we all expect in terms of Isak, then I will be doing an impromptu show. Or if there's any sort of development regarding Rodrygo, Marc Guehi, um, most likely I will be doing an impromptu show. So the best thing to do is hit that notification bell so you know what time I'll go live. And then, yeah, but the real sort of schedule programming, I guess, is on Monday, where I'll be doing a live watch along of Newcastle versus Liverpool. Highly anticipated game for, of course, our fans and the Newcastle fans, but I think the whole Premier League is waiting in anticipation. They've got the popcorn ready because it's going to be a movie. It's going to be fireworks. So it's going to be a crazy affair on Monday, and then I'll do a match reaction show after the game as well. So it doesn't have to be just Liverpool fans. Newcastle fans, if you want to come on and have your say, everyone is more than welcome to come on the show. The match reaction show will take place after the game, so just after 11 p.m., similar timing in terms of how this show started today. So yeah, everyone's welcome to come on. So yeah, you'll be able to call in. If you're saying the game, maybe we'll have some, your opinions on the transfer, because then it'll be the final week left. So yeah, only lots to look forward to, and then we'll have some more shows lined up next week as well. Um, Ola Kavak says, Ozzy, Kurt will start right back at St. James Park. I'm calling it. I said that in my previous show yesterday. I think Curtis Jones will start at right back as well. I don't think we'll risk Conor Bradley, and we'll definitely not be risking Joe Gomez. Just because he hasn't trained for 3 days straight. I think yesterday was the first time he's trained in over a week, and Bradley just trained as well. So they're basically on the same stage where they haven't trained for quite some time, and they've just started training yesterday. So for me, it's too risky to place either of those players. If one is fitter than the other, then you've got to place them on the bench, but only if we need to have them on. So for me, I'd rather have a makeshift player in that area of the pitch. I went through some of the options yesterday in terms of it being possibly Endo, but Endo's performance against Bournemouth has put me off slightly, even though originally that was the player I had in my lineup, because I thought to myself, I'd rather have Endo, more of a defensive minded player, on that right hand side. And if he's finding it, difficult to handle those one-on-one duels with either Barnes or Gordon, whoever plays on that left side, then you've got Gravenberg covering the ground, and he can kind of like help, make it into like a two-on-one situation on that left-hand side. But then after that performance against Bournemouth, I thought maybe let's not do that experiment again. And then you've got Szoboszlai. For me, I feel like we need Szoboszlai in the middle of the park. We need his energy and his physicality in this game. So for me, he's vital to be played in those central roles, whether it's in the double pivot or in the number 10. It remains to be seen, but he needs to be involved in the middle of park, in my opinion. Um, who was the other option? We had Endo, Jones, Szoboszlai. I think those were the main ones. So for me, Jones is the one where I've seen him play there. Isn't the best at right back. Let's not beat around the bush, but still did a couple decent jobs last year when he made a makeshift appearance there for us. So for me, it might be where we utilize him on that right hand side and just see how it goes. But of course, for Newcastle, that would be the target. That would be the weak point of our team. So expect, Barnes or Gordon. So I'm expecting Gordon to start in the false nine role. I'm expecting Barnes to be on the left hand side. So I'm going to expect Barnes to try and cause havoc on that left hand side. But let's see. It's going to be an interesting affair. I know everyone's expecting it to be like some sort of Royal Rumble, but it's going to be a football game as well. I think it's going to be very aggressive in the opening 10, 15 minutes, and then you're going to see tactics being played a lot more as the game goes on. So it's going to be interesting in terms of who's in the lineup and how both teams set up. I'm very intrigued to see, what unfolds in that game. Gas says 120 million will not get the deal done. There's a sell-on clause for starters. Is that with Sociedad in terms of the sell-on clause there? I was saying 120 plus add-ons, so the add-ons would be based on performance related, but maybe you might be right. From what I've seen in terms of from media outlets, they've said 130. So I've said 120 because I thought it was going to be that kind of range plus add-ons that equals to 130, but it could be 130 plus add-ons. So not sure in terms of where we stand on the next bid. But I guess we'll soon find out. What I do feel like will happen, we'll definitely place a bid. So whether it's 120 or 130, it will definitely test towards. And let's see, what Newcastle respond with. Do they accept or do they decline? Let's see what happens next week. Uh, AFC 20 says, suppose that right back for me, and I'm not quite with that idea. I know some fans are like, oh, he'll bring physicality on that side and he'll offer a good passing range. But I feel like you lose a lot of Szoboszlai's strong assets, which is being energetic, being someone that's on the front foot with his pressing, and he's able to ping balls around the pitch, but also he's able to create chances for himself, whether it's from long shooting distance or you know creating an opening through counter attack. Because he's normally the one that's driving with the ball. You can't do that right back. So for me, I want him in a more of a central position. So that's my opinion. Of course, he might be used at some point in the season, but for this game, I think he'll be better in the middle of the park. And then we've got LFC 20 saying Swansea can ping the ball about when he has time on the ball. He will, but Newcastle are very aggressive with the pressing as well. So don't expect our players to have all the time in the world, especially our defenders. They will be pressed on, especially Konate and Van Dijk. So for me, Konate needs to step it up. The performance he produced against Bournemouth was very worrying. If he's showing that kind of form in this game, I'm really concerned because the way he got, taken over by Semenyo and then Tavernier at times, like it was an easy um, day for those attackers there. So with Newcastle, they've got superior players in my opinion. So with the likes of Gordon and Barnes, these are guys that are energetic, so they would definitely um, have a field day if Konate shows that kind of form, and having a player alongside him who's not going to be predominant right back because I don't expect Bradley or Joe Gomez to start in this game. There's more issues there even further, so that's going to be an issue in this game. That's my concern more than the hustle and bustle of this game with with what's going around with the whole Isak deal. From a tactical point of view, that's my concern going to this game. But hopefully, Arsenal has a plan and we can produce that plan on the day. Other than Cavani, I expect to see that fresh fade on Monday night. Let's see. Let's see. If I have time, I'll get that fresh fade. If it brings good luck, I'm gonna have to do fresh paid every game, but then I'm gonna be out of a lot of money in my wallet as well. But yeah, let's see what happens. But that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care, stay safe, and I hope to speak to you guys very, very soon. Goodbye.